I work at night. Most people sleep at night, but I walk through long, quiet hallways. The lights are low. The air smells like medicine and clean floors. Machines make soft sounds, like breathing. But they are not breathing. They are just machines, keeping people alive a little longer. My name is Carol. I am a nurse, but my job is not like other nurses. I do not give medicine. I do not check blood pressure. I sit next to people who are dying. I sit, and I wait, and I listen. In this hospital, there is a small ward called the hospice. This is the place where people come when there is no more hope. The doctors have done everything. The families have cried all their tears. And now, there is only waiting. My special duty has a name. They call me the last word keeper. When a patient is close to death, I sit beside their bed. I hold their hand if they want me to. And if they speak, if they say anything at all in those final moments, I write it down. I write their words in a small blue leather journal. Later, I give this journal to their family. Most people think dying is silent. It is not always silent. Sometimes, in the very last minutes, a person opens their eyes. Sometimes they say a name. Sometimes they say, I love you, or I am sorry, or just mother. These small words mean everything to the families who receive them. I remember one woman, Mrs. Chen, who had not spoken for 3 weeks. Her daughter sat by her bed every single day, holding her hand, talking to her, singing old songs. Nothing. And then, on the last night, Mrs. Chen opened her eyes and said, "The garden looks beautiful." Her daughter cried for an hour. She told me later that they used to grow roses together when she was a child. That is the power of last words. They are small, they are short, but they carry the weight of a whole life. I have done this job for 6 years. 6 years of sitting in dark rooms, 6 years of listening to last breaths. And in all that time, I learned something, or I thought I learned something. I believed that every person, at the very end, wants to say something good, something kind. I believed that death makes people soft, that anger goes away, that old fights stop. I believed that the last word is always about love. That is what I told myself. And because I believed this, I sometimes changed the words, just a little. If a dying man said something confused, something ugly, something that made no sense, I would fix it. I would make it beautiful. A man once said, "The door, the red door," and I wrote, "I remember our home." A woman once screamed a name I did not know, and I wrote, "Tell my daughter I am proud of her." I called these my white lies, small lies to bring peace. I thought I was helping. I thought I was kind. I thought I was an angel standing between death and pain, protecting the living from words that would only hurt. I was so sure of myself, so proud. I want to tell you about the night that changed everything. The night I stopped believing in my own kindness. It started with room 402. The new patient arrived on a Tuesday. His name was Elias Harmon. Even I knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. He was a millionaire, a man who owned buildings and companies. The newspapers always had stories about him, but the stories were never warm. He was famous for being cold, for being difficult, for fighting with everyone. His wife died years ago. His business partners all left him. He was, by every account, a man who lived completely alone, and now he was dying alone too. When I first walked into room 402, I saw a thin old man in a large bed. His skin was gray. His breathing was rough and uneven, like paper tearing slowly. His eyes were mostly closed, but sometimes they opened just a little. And when they did, I saw something strange. There was no peace in those eyes. There was no softness. There was anger. Even half-conscious, even barely alive, Elias Harmon looked furious. No family came to visit. No friends, only lawyers. Men in dark suits carrying folders. They came, they whispered to each other near the door, and they left. They never touched him. They never spoke to him. They only looked at him the way people look at a clock, checking how much time is left. One of the lawyers, a short man with glasses, came 3 times in 1 week. Each time, he brought a different folder. Each time, he stood at the foot of the bed and looked at Elias with a strange expression. Not sadness, more like frustration. Like Elias was not dying fast enough. I heard him say to another lawyer in the hallway, "The son keeps calling. He wants to know about the will." The other lawyer shook his head and said, "We cannot do anything until—" He stopped talking when he saw me. I felt sorry for him. I sat beside his bed during my shifts and talked to him softly, even though I was not sure he could hear me. I told him about the weather. I told him the food in the cafeteria was terrible. I told him about a funny thing my neighbor's cat did that morning. Small, stupid things. But I wanted him to know that someone was there, that someone saw him as a person, not a problem to solve. 3 days after Elias arrived, his son came. Amber Harmon walked into the ward like he owned it. He was tall, well-dressed, wearing an expensive suit that looked too perfect for a hospital. His cologne was strong. It filled the room and pushed away the smell of medicine. He had a handsome face, a confident walk, and a smile that showed all his teeth. But something was wrong. I felt it immediately. When Amber looked at his father, there was nothing in his eyes. No sadness, no worry, no love. He looked at the old man in the bed, the way you look at a thing, not a person. Like Elias was a package he was waiting to pick up. "You are the nurse who writes the last words?" Amber asked me. His voice was polite. Too polite. "Yes," I said. "I record whatever the patient says in their final moments. The family receives the journal." Amber nodded slowly. He looked at his father again, then back at me. "I should tell you something," he said. "My father was not a kind man. When he was angry, he said terrible things. Things he did not mean. If he says something irrational, please do not give it too much importance. He was always like that." I nodded, but I did not like the way he said it. It sounded like a warning, like he was preparing me to ignore something. Amber stayed for 20 minutes. During those 20 minutes, he checked his watch 11 times. I counted. He did not hold his father's hand. He did not say goodbye. He just sat in the chair near the window, looking at his phone, waiting. Then he stood up, put on his coat, and left. At the door, he turned and smiled at me. "Call me when it is over. When it is over. Not when he passes. Not when my father. Just when it is over." Like he was talking about a meeting. After Amber left, I sat alone with Elias. The room was very quiet. Just the machine sounds and his rough breathing. I looked at his face. Under the anger, under the years of loneliness, I thought I could see something else. Pain. Old pain. The kind that lives deep inside a person for a long time. "What happened between you and your son?" I whispered. Of course, there was no answer. That night, around 3 in the morning, something happened. I was sitting in my chair, writing notes, when I felt a pull on my hand. I looked down. Elias had grabbed my wrist. His grip was surprisingly strong for a dying man. His eyes were open, fully open, and he was looking straight at me. His mouth was moving, but no sound came out. Just air. Just effort. Then his hand relaxed, and his eyes closed again. My heart was beating fast. I checked his monitors. His condition was worse. He did not have much time. Maybe hours. Maybe a day. I called the doctor. I called Amber's number. No answer. I sat back down and waited. The next night, the storm came. Rain hit the windows so hard it sounded like someone throwing small rocks at the glass. The wind screamed outside. The lights in the hallway flickered once, twice. The whole hospital felt restless, like even the building was nervous. I was alone with Elias. His breathing was changing. It was slower now, longer gaps between each breath. The heart monitor beeped, then paused, then beeped again in a strange pattern. I knew the signs. This was the end. I opened my blue journal. I took out my pen, and I waited. At 11:47 p.m., Elias opened his eyes. This time was different. He was awake, really awake. He turned his head and found me. His hand reached out, shaking badly, and grabbed the front of my uniform. He pulled me close, so close I could feel his breath on my ear. His voice was a thin, dry sound, like dead leaves moving across the ground. "Tell my son," he said. Each word cost him everything. "Tell my son, I." Then he choked. His body shook. He fought for air. I heard a sound. A word. It started with a hard sound, a K or an F. But at that exact moment, thunder exploded outside the window. The loudest thunder I have ever heard. It shook the room. It swallowed his voice completely. His lips kept moving, but I could not hear. I could not hear the word. And then I saw his tears. They ran down his old, gray face. Slow, heavy tears. His eyes looked at me with something I thought was pain. Deep, deep pain. His mouth still tried to form words, but his body had no more strength to give. His fingers tightened on my uniform one last time, then slowly opened. I held his hand. His grip was getting weaker. The rain outside was so loud. The machines were beeping. And I was alone with a dying man who had something to say and could not say it. And in that moment, I made my decision. I looked at this old, dying man, crying in his bed, and I thought, of course he wants to forgive. He is dying alone. His son is the only family he has. No one wants to die with hate in their heart. He must want to say forgive. He wants to forgive his son. I was so sure. I was always so sure. Elias took one more breath. Then the machine made a long, flat sound. The line on the screen went straight. He was gone. My hands were shaking. I picked up my pen. I opened the blue journal, and I wrote, "Tell my son, I forgive him." I sat there for a long time after that, looking at the words I had written. I felt warm inside. I felt good. I felt like I had done something beautiful. I had fixed a broken thing. I had given peace to a dead man and his son. I was so proud of myself. When Amber came the next morning, I gave him the journal. He stood in the hallway and opened it. He read the words slowly. His face did not change for a long time. Then he smiled. It was a small smile, quiet, but something about it made my stomach turn. It was not a sad smile. It was not a grateful smile. It was the smile of a man who just won a game. "Thank you," he said. "This means a lot." He closed the journal, put it under his arm, and walked away. His shoes made sharp sounds on the hospital floor. Click, click, click. Getting farther and farther away. I stood there in the hallway and watched him go. Something felt wrong, but I could not say what. I told myself I was tired. I told myself I was imagining things. 2 weeks passed. I went back to my routine. Other patients came. Other last words. I kept doing my job, kept polishing the words when I thought they needed it. I barely thought about Elias anymore. Then Amber came back. He looked different. The last time I saw him, he was cold but controlled. Now he was bright. His eyes were sharp and alive. He moved with confidence, like a man who just received very good news. The quiet, waiting Amber was gone. This was a man who had gotten exactly what he wanted. "Carolyn," he said, smiling at me like we were old friends. "Do you have a moment? I would like to buy you a coffee." We sat in the hospital cafeteria. He bought 2 cups of coffee. He put sugar in his. He stirred it slowly. Then he reached into his coat pocket and put something on the table between us. It was a small black device. A recorder. "You know, Carolyn," he said, "my father was a very careful man. He did not trust anyone, not his lawyers, not his nurses." He paused. Not even the ones who sat beside his bed. My coffee was getting cold. I did not touch it. He put this under his bed. Amber continued. "A recording device? It recorded everything in that room. Every sound, every word. My blood went cold." Amber pressed a button on the device, and I heard it. Elias's voice. Clear, perfectly clear. The storm, the thunder, everything was in the background, but his voice was right next to the microphone. There was no confusion, no doubt. Tell my son. I know what he did. 5 words. 5 words that were supposed to change everything. 5 words that I replaced with 3 different ones. The cafeteria sounds disappeared. The people around me disappeared. The woman laughing at the next table. The man buying a sandwich. The television on the wall showing the news. All gone. There was only that voice. That dead man's voice. Saying the words I did not write. I played it again in my head. I know what he did. Not forgive. Not love. No. He knew. And he wanted someone else to know too. Amber stopped the recording. He picked up his coffee and took a slow sip. My father, he said, believed I took money from his company. He also believed I was responsible for my mother's accident. The insurance. You understand. He said this calmly, like he was discussing the weather. His last words were his final attack. A trap. He wanted the lawyers to hear this recording and investigate. I could not move. I could not breathe. But then, Amber smiled wider. A kind nurse wrote something different in the journal. I forgive him. Such beautiful words. The lawyers saw the journal. They decided that my father had changed his mind at the end. They dropped the investigation. All of it. He leaned forward. The company, the money, the properties, everything came to me. Legally, completely. My mouth was dry. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know. His smile disappeared. His face was empty. You think you were being kind. You think you were helping a dying old man. But you helped me. Your one little lie was worth $50 million. He stood up. He straightened his tie. He looked down at me with something between pity and amusement. Thank you, nurse. Your kindness was the most expensive gift anyone has ever given me. He walked out of the cafeteria. I sat there with 2 cups of cold coffee and a truth that would never leave me. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Elias's face kept appearing in the darkness. His tears. His eyes. I had thought he was crying because he wanted to forgive. Because he was sad about the broken relationship with his son. Because death made him soft. But no. He was crying because he was helpless. He was crying because his body was failing, and he could not say the words loud enough. He was crying because he knew, in that final moment, that the truth might not survive him. And it did not. Because of me. I was not an angel. I was not a kind nurse, protecting families from ugly words. I was an accomplice. I helped a man get away with terrible things. My pen, my beautiful blue journal, my white lies, they were not mercy. They were a weapon, and I had handed that weapon to the worst possible person. I went to the hospital board. I sat in a small room with 3 administrators and told them what happened. They listened quietly. Their faces got harder and harder as I spoke. If this is true, one of them said, then you guessed a patient's last words. You did not record them accurately. Do you understand what this means for the hospital? I understood. If I admitted the truth publicly, the hospital would face a huge lawsuit. My nursing license would be gone. And legally, the signed journal was final, my word against a dead man's whisper. There was no going back. We will look into it, they said. But their eyes said something different. Their eyes said, be quiet. This is too big, too dangerous. They never called me again. For weeks, I lived in a gray fog. I went to work. I sat by beds. I held hands, but I could not write in the journal anymore. Every time I opened it, I saw those words. I forgive him. A lie that cost everything. I asked another nurse, Sandra, to take over the journal duties. She did not ask why. I think she could see it on my face. Something had broken inside me, and it was visible to anyone who looked. I dreamed about Elias almost every night. In my dreams, he was sitting up in his bed, looking at me with those angry, sad eyes. He never spoke in the dreams. He just looked at me. Sometimes he would slowly shake his head, like a teacher disappointed in a student who should have known better. And that was worse than any words. I started eating alone. I stopped talking to the other nurses during breaks. I stopped watching television at home. The world felt thin and unreal, like I was watching everything through a dirty window. But slowly, something else started growing inside me. Something small and quiet. Not peace, not forgiveness. Something harder. Something with a sharp edge. I started going through the hospital's records. Carefully, quietly. After my shifts, when the office was empty, I made copies. I looked at Amber's visits. I wrote down dates and times. I remembered the conversations I heard between the lawyers in the hallway. I remembered the small details. The way Amber talked about his mother's accident, with a pause before the word, like he was choosing it carefully. The way the lawyers argued about insurance documents outside room 402. The way Amber always checked his watch, counting the minutes until his father's death would make him rich. I could not undo what I did. The journal was signed. The money was gone. Elias was gone. But the recording existed. Amber had played it for me. He was so confident, so sure that I could do nothing, that he showed me his own evidence. He thought I was too small, too scared, too powerless. He was wrong about that. One evening, after my shift, I sat at my kitchen table. I had a large envelope in front of me. Inside it, I put copies of every note, every record, every date and detail I had collected. I wrote a letter explaining what I knew about the recording device and what Amber had told me in the cafeteria. I did not put my name on it. I could not. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I addressed the envelope to the city police department. I walked to the post office in the rain. I held the envelope close to my chest. The streets were empty. It was late, and the rain was heavy, and the whole city felt quiet. I stood in front of the mailbox for a long time. Water ran down my face. My coat was soaked. I read the address one more time. City Police Department. Such simple words for such a complicated thing. I knew this might not work. Amber had money. Amber had lawyers. Amber had power. An anonymous letter from a nurse might mean nothing. It might sit on someone's desk for a week and then go into a trash can. The world does not always punish bad people. I have learned that, but it might mean something. Someone might read it. Someone might look into it. Someone might find the recording device. And if they did, Elias's real last words would finally be heard. I put the envelope in the mailbox and heard it fall inside. I walked home in the rain. I did not feel like a hero. I did not feel brave. I felt tired. But it was a different kind of tired. Not the tired of guilt. The tired of someone who finally did one honest thing after a long time of lying. I still work at the hospital. I still sit beside dying patients. But I do not polish the words anymore. If a person says something ugly, I write it down ugly. If they say something confused, I write it down confused. The truth is not always beautiful. The truth is not always kind. But it belongs to the person who says it, not to me. I do not know what will happen with Amber. I do not know if the police will investigate. I do not know if justice will come. But I know one thing. I will never write another lie in that blue journal. And every night, when I sit beside a bed in the dark, I listen. I listen carefully, because now I understand something I did not understand before. Sometimes, the last word is not love. Sometimes it is not forgiveness. Sometimes it is the truth. And the truth deserves to be heard, even when it is hard, even when it hurts. Especially then. I am still trying to earn back the right to call myself a good nurse. Maybe one day I will. Thank you for listening to today's story. If it made you feel something, if it made you think, then it did its job. If you enjoyed this story and want to keep improving your English through real, emotional storytelling, please hit the like button. It helps more learners like you find this channel. Subscribe to Cavico English Storytime and tap the bell so you never miss a new story. And if you know someone who is learning English too, share this video with them. A good story is always better when you share it with someone. I will see you in the next story. Until then, keep listening, keep learning, and keep feeling.